It's the Magic Untapped Podcast on magiguntapped.com, YouTube, and your favorite source for podcasts. Welcome to the Magic Untapped Podcast. I am Barry White. With me is one of the Magic Untapped writers, Jim Avery. Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Barry. How about yourself?
I've been doing all right. Kind of hard to play a little paper Magic with all this COVID stuff going on, but we got, Arena and Magic Online. You've been keeping yourself busy with that?
I have, yeah. I used to play a bunch of in-person drafts with some friends around the Bay, but it's been difficult to do that, obviously. But we've sort of jury-rigged a way to force everyone into the same draft table in Arena, and so that's sort of how we've been coping with the situation.
Everybody press go now.
Yes, exactly that. And if we don't make it, we do it again. And in one case, we have had to forcibly terminate another table with other people in it to try and get in. And I'm sorry about that to whoever you were. But
they're like, oh, that jerk, he did it to me again.
Yeah.
Well, we just had rotation here on Arena with Zendikar Rising coming out next week on paper, coming out, now on Arena. Have you had a chance to take a look at that at all yet?
Yeah, I was looking through the Zendikar deck earlier this week, mostly checking out the draft, draft-related stuff, because that's mainly what I play. But yeah, I like the look of it so far.
Yeah, it's definitely intriguing. Of course, the set's bringing back a couple mechanics that we've seen previously. We saw a kicker, which was last seen in Dominaria, and it's bringing back landfall, which has seen life pretty much on Zendikar in every Zendikar-related set, it seems. What are your thoughts on those returning mechanics? You happy about those?
I am particularly happy about landfall, which looks like it's going to be used in some extremely cool ways. I have seen some fantastic landfall cards in this deck, and I can't wait to give that a try on Arena.
Definitely a lot better than just the simple, landfall. This creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn sort of things. I mean, there's some actual full-on, pretty cool landfall abilities, such as with the new Omnath card. Have you looked at that card, Omnath, Locus of Creation?
I think I missed that one, unfortunately. I thought I got all the good landfall cards.
It's a 4/4 mythic, costs red, green, white, and blue. It's a legendary elemental. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card, so it replaces itself, which for a 4/4 for 4 that replaces itself, that's not bad to begin with. Then the landfall ability, and I'm reading this right off the card here, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life if this is the first time the landfall has resolved this turn. Or this turn. First time in the turn. If it's the second landfall for the turn, you add red, green, white, blue. If it's the third time you've gotten landfall this turn, Omnath deals 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you do not control. So it's a landfall that stacks.
That's amazing. I can barely imagine the deck that would pull off 3 landfalls in a turn. If you can do it, I mean, you deserve that.
You haven't played enough Modern Legacy, man. I tell you, I swear that happens with regularity in some decks, especially a deck like Amulet Titan, which seems to be able to just pump out land after land after land after land, 2, 3, 4 in a turn anyway.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. I don't play enough of that. I play too much limited.
Yeah. Hey, nothing wrong with it. I got to love a good draft, though. But and then there's a new mechanic called essentially the party mechanic, where you have to have, essentially you're making an adventuring party with a wizard, a rogue, a cleric, and a warrior. Yeah, warrior. Thank you. I mean, on paper, it's very flavorful. I'm a little worried it's not really going to pan out on the table in practice. What are your thoughts?
I was sort of thinking the same thing. The getting a couple of people in your party, it seems easy enough. But actually getting a full party of 4 creatures out there without your opponent, kneecapping you by taking out one of them, it seems like it'd be something that'd be difficult to pull off. And I'm not sure how many full party abilities are potentially worth the trouble.
Right, especially in a 60 card format. That said, kitchen table, casual, EDH commander, I could see some people having some fun with it, oops, hit my microphone, especially in commander.
Oh, I didn't even think about commander, but yeah, you could absolutely make use of that.
Yeah, maybe not competitive EDH, but certainly, with friends, over a beer, over a soda pop, kitchen table, living room table, just having some fun. There's something there. There's something you can do there.
Yeah, I think so. I sort of like that idea of like mechanics that are being put in play, less for competitive use and more just for like having fun. I think that would be fun.
And I'm okay with that. Not every mechanic, not every card, not every theme has to be a tournament quality top tier theme. At least I don't think it has to be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a game first, right? Magic the Gathering is a game. Games are supposed to be fun.
Right, exactly. And it's like it's just the idea of having a party and harkens back to like RPGs and other video games like that. And it just feels fun.
Yeah, and with that, going off of that, of course, recently was mentioned that next year there's a Dungeons and Dragons inspired set. It's actually Dungeons and Dragons branded set, Forgotten Realms, I believe, if I haven't forgotten. And I'm wondering if this party mechanic might get a reprise in the D&D set coming out next year.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine that it won't. It's too good of a fit to not do that.
Right. I mean, next thing you know, they'll do a Final Fantasy co-branded one with Square Enix, and they'll bring it back for that. Who knows?
Ooh, I really like that idea, actually.
Anyway, getting back to Zendikar Rising, is there a card or two that's really caught your eye?
There are. I made a list of like 4 or 5 that really caught my eye, but one in particular that I really like is Felidar Retreat, which is it's a 4-drop, it's big landfall enchantment. Basically, it's got one of 2 landfall abilities you can pick. One is to create a 2/2 white creature token, and the other is to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control and make them vigilant until end of turn. That seems the power in this creature is so huge to me. I mean, it's a cumulative landfall, but it's cumulative in such a big way. Like each time you play it, that it's like a big deal to me, I think.
I'm almost hearing like He-Man, I have the power! That's how much of a freaking geek I am. Any others on the top of your list? And I'll share a couple of mine.
Yeah, the other one, I had this as number 2, was Adrana the Last Blood Chief, which is, I need to pull this up to remember the exact text, because I only prepared 1 card, like a fool. Yeah, it's
you fool!
I'm a fool. I'm fired after this, actually. But yeah, it's a black card, a 5-drop, a 4/4 flyer, which by itself is fine. But whenever Adrana attacks the opponent, it will choose a non-legendary creature in your graveyard, and it comes back to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. And if you can get multiple attacks off, like 2 attacks off with Adrana, it's completely worth it. And just the fact that it's a flying creature, I mean, you're going to get a lot of attacks off unless someone is specifically prepared to take care of it.
Evasion is good, and flying sometimes gets overlooked just because of how passe it is. But I agree, having flying on Adrana is definitely a perk.
Mm-hmm. It seems like if someone is not specifically ready to take out a flying creature, Adrana is going to do some serious work.
Definitely can. Now on my list, we mentioned Omnath earlier, the new Omnath, Locus of Creation. And while I think it's really neat, it's got a lot of good potential, it's not really on the top of my list. Something on the top of my list, personally, and this just might be because I like the card that I feel this is inspired on, and this is an upgrade of, was the old card Vampire Nighthawk. This new card is called Nighthawk Scavenger, and it is for 2 black and 1. It's a vampire rogue with flying, death touch, and lifelink. It's a 1+3 defense. 1+ because Nighthawk's power is equal to 1, plus the number of card types among cards in the opponent's graveyard. So it's almost like a Tarmogoyf. It's like a Tarmogoyf light, but it is absolutely bonkers, especially a 3 mana, 2 black and 1. I understand it's a rare, and rares tend to get pushed a bit more, and the original was an uncommon. Vampire Nighthawk was an uncommon. But this is just screaming aggressive, especially with the Death Touch and the lifelink and the flying. This, I think, is going to see some good competitive play, definitely in Standard. I could see people trying it out in Modern, maybe in Legacy. I'm not sure if it's quite strong enough for Legacy, but it's definitely going to see some play. That is for certain. And one other card I like, it's also a black card. I'm not necessarily a black player per se, but another card here is Soul Shatter, which is an instant for black and 2. With some pretty nifty art. Honestly, this art would make a great tattoo. If you're watching the YouTube channel, of course, you can see it. If you're listening on the podcast, sorry, you have to check out the YouTube channel or just Google Soul Shatter MTG. You'll probably find it. But so for black and 2 at instant speed, each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker with the highest converted mana cost among other creatures and planeswalkers they control. So it's not necessarily targeted, so you might not get to pick, but it gets around hexproof, it gets around protections, and it gets around indestructibility. So if you are playing against a player, let's say they have Emrakul in play, which is indestructible, or Ulamog, one of those big Eldrazi Titans, you can drop this at instant speed on their turn, and they're forced to sacrifice that Eldrazi Titan, or if they got the 5 mana Teferi out there, and that's the highest mana cost, this is a real quick and easy way to get rid of that pesky Teferi.
Yeah, wow. The circumventing hexproof, I think that's a very clever and cool way of doing it. Yeah, Soul Shatter, that was on my short list as well.
Yeah, that's good. It's good. I mean, it's not necessarily the most original. I think it's called Innocent Blood, is each player sacrifices a creature, which gets around that, and that's an old card from Odyssey. But the way this card, the way a Soul Shatter does it, and that it expands to planeswalkers, I think can really, really save your butt.
Oh yeah, I could definitely use that whenever an opponent brings down like their one huge drop.
Mm-hmm. And one other thing that just at least needs a mention, I'm not convinced it's going to be executed terribly well, but again, I haven't seen this in practice yet. The new kind of double-faced cards where it's one card on one side and a land on the other, and you've got the dual lands, that's one or the other, depending on what side of the card you're looking at. Just real quick, Jim, what are your thoughts on that? I'm kind of, I got to see in practice.
Yeah, that one, it's hard for me to know exactly how well that would work out, like, for me. I think you would need to know, like, am I going to use this to replace a spell, or am I going to use this as a land that's maybe going to get a boost? It seems like it would be difficult, especially for newer players, to know how to work with them pretty well. Certainly. I can say that as someone who is most likely the least skilled player who is going to be on this podcast.
Yeah. As a limited player, though, what do you think about that in draft or sealed?
In draft, it's a good question. I sort of like the idea of it, for sure. The possibility that if you're just really big in trouble, that this card you were saving, it could end up being a land instead and sort of come in the clutch there. So it's definitely some added value, but I think it's also some added difficulty just in drafting, especially in Arena if you've got a time limit.
All right. Well, we'll see how that executes over time, I suppose, especially once the paper product comes out and people start manipulating it physically. But now let's move on to our weekly winners and losers. We're going to take a look at the top 3 cards that have gained and have lost value over the last 3 weeks. And this is not limited to any one format. This is just overall. And the information here comes courtesy of MTG Stocks. ntgstocks.com, that is. So let's start with the weekly winners. We have 2 cards from Legends on here, as well as one from a dual deck. So we have, first off, the card that is the third highest change, and this is ranked by percent of change, not by dollar amount per se, is actually the common Seal of Fire, specifically the dual deck Fire and Lightning Seal of Fire. So is it Fire and Lightning? I'm all of a sudden forgetting. Either way, I'm going to look this up while we're chatting about it, but it was 33 cents. Yeah. Yes, that's it. Yes, that's the one, Jim. Anyway, so it started off at 33 cents a week ago. It's now $2.04, which is an increase of 518% on that card. The next one is Drago, which is a legendary creature from Legends. Was $6.56. It's now $54.99, which is an increase of 738%. And then with an increase of a whopping 2,858% is the card, no, it's the card Ghosted Dirk. Was $9.95, is now $294.32. It's the price of a revised dual land now. Jim, I mean, these are not cards I would expect to see at the top of any stocks list, any finance list, and yet here they are. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I was looking up all these cards trying to figure out what could have caused this, and with Ghost of Dirk, I am mystified. It's like It doesn't seem like a particularly powerful card, and I'm not sure it's necessarily going to dovetail all that well with the Zendikar Rising set that's coming out.
So we can't say that's correlation there.
I don't think so.
The only thing I can think of, and this only qualifies for Ghost of Dirk and Drago because Seal of Fire is not on the reserve list. These other 2 cards are on the reserve list. So I'm wondering if these are collectors, speculators, artificially driving up the price, part of this magic finance bubble that we have with a lot of these older, we'll never again see print cards.
That could be possible. That's the only thing I can think of, is that it's sort of a collector's item. But why now all of a sudden? Like this change was over the course of a week, wasn't it?
Yeah, over the course of a week. And it's not like these cards haven't been out since 93, 94, these 2 older ones.
Do you think that maybe this is like some sort of bot-driven sort of thing? Well, you can see that occasionally on Amazon where the random item just skyrockets in price.
I don't know. I do not know. If this thing plummets back down over the course of the next week or 2, I guess we'll have our answer. It was either a failed speculation, or maybe it is something artificial, like you're suggesting.
Maybe, I don't know. We'll have to keep an eye on it and see how it pans out.
Right. And now the 3 cards that have lost the most value. We have Spire Garden, which this specific printing is the Expedition printing that will be coming out as, I believe they're coming out as box toppers for buying boxes of the Zendikar Rising Collector's Edition and whatnot. But Spire Garden has fallen from $32.99 a week ago to $17.85, which was a drop of just shy of 46%. The Arabian Nights card, Repentant Blacksmith, which is not on the reserve list, I might add, fell from $129.99 to an even $65, and that's a drop of 46.72%. And then Radiant Archangel, the legendary creature from Urza's Destiny, which is on the reserve list, Radiant Archangel is, that one fell by 50.08%, so lost half its value over the course of 1 week. It went from $60 to $30.
All of these cards, they fell roughly like equal percentages of value, like 46%, 50%.
Yeah, all within a stone's throw of each other, right?
Yeah, the Spire Garden, if it's being reused, then that I can certainly understand. Its rarity is suddenly dropping. So
it's not really suddenly dropping as an expedition because they're going to be so rare and hard to find anyway. I mean, what are we talking about? Maybe an extra few thousand copies in the market worldwide, maybe?
I suppose, but I guess if maybe the collector's market sort of has a different view of rarity, like a few thousand more cards in the market How many people are there looking for this card in particular? Could it also be a few thousand?
And how many people are actively using Spire Garden in their decks? I know it's not something I've seen recently at all in anybody's deck. I mean, despite not playing a whole lot because of COVID, even before that, I never really saw it in at the stores, at least not here in the Sacramento area.
Yeah, looks like it's, based on the text of the card, it's not super like any better than another dual land unless you're playing a game with more than 2 people in it.
Yeah, but yeah. So those are the top 3 and bottom 3. We'll check in again at our next episode next month and see what's going on there. Maybe next time they'll make a little more sense than a Ghost of Dirk going up by almost 3,000% in a week.
Yeah.
But speaking of cards to put in a deck, let me tell you a little bit about a deck I've been working on. Just about completed it. It is a Legacy deck called Omnitell. Not exactly a specifically unique deck that, to me, it's not like I invented it, but this is my build of it and something I'm planning on taking out and around from time to time. Have it up on the screen there for those of you on YouTube. Again, those of you on the audio podcast, you might want to check it out on the YouTube, or you can probably just Google it and you'll find, if not my build, a build similar to it. But so in this deck, 60 card Legacy deck, I am running 19 land, 2 Ancient Tomb, which taps for 2, damages you, but taps for 2. 1 Crystal Vein, which taps for 1 colorless, or I can tap and sack to add 2 colorless. I have some fetch lands and 3 Flooded Strands, Wooded Foothell. I am running a Mystic Sanctuary to help me get back a card that maybe I had countered or got discarded. A little insurance policy there. Running 2 Prismatic Vista for fetching as well. I have 1 Tropical Island, the original dual land there. It's really a really big money card in this deck. In addition to 5 snow-covered islands and 2 snow-covered forests. Creatures, we got 2 Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn, 2 Grizzlebrand, and 3 Icefang Coddles from Modern Horizons. Instants, we got 4 Brainstorms, 3 Cunning Wish, 1 Factor Fiction, 4 Force of Will, 1 Impulse, 1 Intuition, 3 Veil of Summer. We got some sorceries and 3 Drawn from Dreams from a recent core set. 4 Ponder, 2 Preordain, 4 Show and Tell being the key card in this deck, along with the enchantment Omniscience. How do you say that? Omniscience?
Omniscience is what I...
Omniscience?
Yeah.
Fine. We'll run with that. Omniscience. 4 Omniscience.
We'll edit it.
I'll just call it Nom Nom Nom. No, that's if it was made of pizza. I am running 1 Sylvan Library, and then sideboard, again, situational based on your meta. But in mine, I have 2 Boseiju, 2 Carved of Flowers, 2 Echoing Truth, 1 Elendamri's Call, 1 Firemind's Foresight, 1 Force of Negation, Force of Vigor, Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Mindbreak Traps, and a Veil of Summer. Of course, in this deck, because I am running those 3 Cunning Wishes, my sideboard also doubles as a wish board so that I can go out and grab a card from it to put into my hand if the situation calls for it. Now, of course, the key thing you really want to do here is you want to play your Show and Tell, which is a sorcery for blue and 2 that says each player may put an artifact, creature, enchantment, or land card from his or her hand into the battlefield. So it's a nice parallel effect. I get to do it, and Jim, you get to do it. Any one of those types from your hand into play. Of course, I'm going to be putting out the 10-drop enchantment, Omniscience. How do you say it again?
Omniscience?
Omniscience.
I could be wrong about that.
Well, it's spelled omniscience.
Yeah, I know the adjective is just omniscient, so I
right.
think it's similar. So.
Anyway, it says, the enchantment says, you may cast spells from your hand without paying their mana costs. So I Show and Tell Omniscience into play, and then suddenly I can play anything in my hand, and of course I still only get 1 land drop a turn, but anything in my hand I can play for free, which includes the creatures like Emrakul and Grizzlebrand, and all the card draw like Brainstorm, the Cunning Wishes, Drawn from Dreams, all that. I can get it all done right there, and have an instant board state that you would now have to deal with or die.
Yeah, I would probably die. Like, show and tell. That was a total 3 mana cost for that?
Yeah, blue and 2. Yeah, blue and 2. It's an old card, originally from the Urza's block. Seen a couple reprints since then, but yeah.
Wow, so it's like you're basically circumventing the need to find another 7 mana, and then you basically don't need mana again as long as Omniscience stays on
Pretty
the board.
much don't need mana again. Of course, if that gets disrupted, maybe something happens and I don't have access to my show and tells, then I'm pretty much host. But you know what? It's one of those things where you're probably going to fire off. And for a deck that's worth, according to TCG Player, between about $1,100 and $1,400, I kind of hope it fires off more often than not. At least that would be the plan.
Yeah, I mean, personally, if I had to choose between a deck that frequently won and a deck that frequently popped off in a flashy way, the latter is very tempting.
Oh, it's fun if nothing else, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, let's go ahead and close down this podcast for the day here. We talked a bit about Zendikar Rising, some of our favorite cards from it, some of the mechanics, Kicker, Landfall, and Party. We talked about those dual face cards, some funny stuff in finance, and then of course my blue-green Omnitell Legacy deck. Jim, what are your thoughts on any of that or anything else?
The one thing I'm not sure we got around to was talking about the kicker stuff.
Well, that would be a kicker. Let's do that now.
Yeah, sure. So, how about them kickers?
How about them kickers? Well,
how about them? Their ability to get the football, and I completely fumbled this joke. I apologize.
But you picked it up with that fumble reference, so that was pretty good. So Kicker, actually, I am a fan of Kicker. I've liked it since its debut back in olden times, and was very happy when it came back in Dominaria. It's back again in Zendikar Rising, and it's just one of those things where it just always kind of fits. It's nice to have an expandable spell. It almost makes it modal in a way, especially if kicking it allows you to do something different or something else. It's one thing if you have a card that, and I'm just going off, I'm just shooting off the hip here. If you have a card that's, let's say, 1 green, but if you pay 1 green, it gives +2/+2. I think the card's called Sylvan Knight, now that I think about it. It's an old card. But then you pay an extra 2, so it's like green and 2, and they get +4/+4. It scales. That part's nice. But I kind of like it in cards like Into the Royal, which is seeing a reprint in Zendikar Rising, where it's blue and 1, return target permanent to its owner's hand. Kicker, blue and 1, draw a card. So for 2 blue and 2, you essentially get a boomerang that replaces itself. So Kicker can be very, very handy, but it's also kind of a trap sometimes because you might be holding a card because you want to get it with the Kicker. And sometimes you hold it too long, and it kind of bites you in the butt.
Yeah, I have run into that trap before, certainly, trying to pop off like my ultimate ability, and then the opponent shuts me down first.
I mean, sometimes it's what's more important, to have this 2/3 creature on the battlefield, or to wait 4 turns until I can afford the Kicker, and all of a sudden I have a 2/3 that enters the battlefield that gives all my creatures, I don't know, hexproof until the turn. I'm making it up, but at some point you have to realize, when is it more important just to go with version A versus version A plus B through Kicker?
Yeah, for sure. I think, like, in a draft scenario, you would probably need to be happy with either version of that card if you're going to be grabbing it, I think. Unless B is, like, an absolute bomb that can win you the game, I think you definitely need to be prepared to not kick a card if you're going to put it out.
Right. And okay, and to wrap this up, Jim, one final thought from you. Zendikar Rising out now on Arena, coming out in a week on paper. If you had one thought that could make or break the set for you, what would it be?
Thought, I guess it would depend on how effectively I can play with this landfall mechanic, which is the one thing I'm absolutely looking forward to the most. Because, like, I guess it depends on if I can keep these cards out, or if I'm just going to find myself in my usual scenario, which is I put out my favorite card and the opponent removes it. I don't know. That's not a very good answer, but
hey, it's an answer. I know for me, I'm kind of looking a little bit of where we've been recently with the last couple sets, and that Uro card from Theros Beyond Death is just a thorn in my side. So make or break for me is a way to effectively deal with not just Uro, but just the escape mechanic in general. So I really kind of want to see where Zendikar Rising steps in to help deal with the escape cards and Uro from Theros Beyond Death. But that does it for us here for the Magic Untapped podcast for this month, the month of September 2020. Jim, hope your 2020 improves. Lord knows it's been tough on all of us this year.
I would say it can only improve, but I would not dare attempt fate like that.
Well, between pandemic, wildfires up and down the West Coast, we had like zombie bees at one point, I think.
Yeah, we did. What
happened? Like one dumpster fire after another. Well, let's close that dumpster lid. Have a great month, and we'll see you next time for the next episode of the Magic Untapped podcast. I'm Barry White.
I'm Jim Avery. Thank you for watching.
Take care.